Welcome back, everybody. When it comes to our diet, you might be surprised to learn that some key nutrients are likely to be underconsumed by the average Canadian adult.
Well, today we're going to learn what those nutrients are and how we can consume more of them. Please join us in welcoming registered dietitian Andy DeSantis to the show. Welcome, Andy.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Looking forward to it.
Andy, as a dietitian, how do you quantify what is adequately consumed by the average adult?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's two layers to it, right? First of all, there's what we call the dietary reference intakes. So these are set by scientists and health organizations. And they basically say, okay, if the average adult has this nutrient at this level over an extended period, they're probably going to be in better health. Okay, so we have those numbers. And then we have what people are actually doing on the streets in the cities. And researchers look at this, and they look at the intake patterns of Canadians. And then we look at the disparity between those two things to determine, okay, these are the reference levels, these are what people are actually doing, and where the big gaps exist, that's where someone like myself is interested.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's start with vitamin D. We live in Canada, so we know that especially in the winter months, we're lacking in this. So what is important about vitamin D? Why do we need it?
Yeah, so vitamin D is a very, very interesting, very elusive vitamin. It's not found in very many foods. It's found mostly in fish, like salmon, sardines, and trout. And we get it from the sun as well. The sun in Canada is not that strong for half the year, so that's also a problem. And as far as what it does for the body, we're learning more and more about it all the time, but we know it's involved in bone health, which is kind of where the interest started, but also in immune health, relates to inflammation, relates to muscle functionality. And as the years go, we're going to learn more and more about the role vitamin D has in the body, and I expect it's going to be very, very interesting. One of the vitamin D hacks I recommend from the dietary perspective is to lean into, canned fish, canned sardines, canned mackerel. People don't really love these things always straight out of the can, but they're quite nice if you pan fry them, if you air fry them. It's a totally different food. So I highly recommend trying that.
Yeah, I know. All my Portuguese folks are like, we got the sardines covered, y'all. We got it covered. The next one we're going to talk about is magnesium, and this is something that I have, recently in the last 2 years, brought into my repertoire. So tell us about, something that people never talk about, and yet I think most of us are actually deficient in, and why it's important.
Magnesium is one of those things. Magnesium supplements are very, very popular. Magnesium is definitely underconsumed. It plays a variety of interesting roles in the body, like for migraine and headaches, insulin resistance, blood sugar control, bone health, blood pressure. It has a role to play in all of these things, especially if you underconsume it. It's found in a pretty wide group of foods, but foods that aren't always consumed sufficiently. So things like leafy greens, nuts and seeds, legumes, dark chocolate, whole grains, so the brown rice, the whole grain pastas of the world, the whole grain bread. So if and that's fair enough, my clients say the same thing. So if you want to fulfill your magnesium gap by switching to whole grains, you certainly can, but it's not the only option. One of the things I recommend very often for an easy snack is, nuts and dark chocolate. You can bring it to work, keeps you full in the afternoon.
Yeah, sure.
Tasty. And it'll check a lot of boxes in terms of the nutrients you fall short in if you had that.
As you mentioned, magnesium, obviously, it's a very popular supplement. So is that something that you would recommend?
It's a good question. I mean, supplements are very case by case. There is a lot of evidence. Certain supplements definitely help certain people in the right context. Certain things like vitamin D, which are very hard to get from the diet, which we cannot really get in the winter months especially, it can be very hard for someone to get optimal vitamin D levels without supplementation. So again, there's a lot of evidence for certain supplements to work. It depends on the person. It could be a conversation they have with their healthcare provider. But if you look at top selling supplements lists, you're gonna see magnesium takes up 4 or 5 of the top 20 or 30 spots. And that's a reflection of the good amount of evidence for it, but also the fact that people simply don't consume enough. So there's gonna be that gap, and any way you fill that gap, your health is gonna improve.
Okay, up next, vitamin C.
Vitamin C, another one, it's something that is found in pretty much every fruit and vegetable, okay? It's found in a lot of foods. Some have more than others. It's useful for skin health, for immunity, for healing of wounds. So from the immune health perspective, that's something that we may have heard before. It's an antioxidant. It helps absorb certain nutrients like iron in the body. So it has a lot of roles to play. And again, it's found in kale, bell peppers, not sweet potatoes, sorry, well, perhaps a little bit, strawberries, oranges, kiwi. All fruits and vegetables, just some have a little bit more than others.
Got it.
Okay, let's talk about calcium. I think automatically a lot of people will say, oh yeah, bone health, but that's not all.
That's not all. Bone health is definitely a massive one. It's definitely a massive one. Probably the biggest health-related thing it helps with that people maybe not be aware of is blood pressure. blood pressure is a very common thing. Calcium does help with that. Also helps with your muscles and your nerves and your heart health. So all sorts of functions in there. And it's found in a wide array of foods again. We know that, dairy foods, the milks, the yogurts, the cheese of the world are a great source, but there's also a whole other wide array of foods that's found in soy-based foods like tofu, tempeh, and edamame. And one of my favorite things to recommend people to try something fun is grabbing frozen edamame, throwing it in the air fryer, boiling it. I find for a lot of my clients, they love edamame. I like to pick on it because it's something I think people could eat more of because it actually is very high in all the nutrients we're going to discuss today, but people don't always think to make it at home. Certainly the people that I encounter, so that's something fun to definitely try. But again, it's the nuts and seeds, it's the legumes, the lentils and chickpeas of the world. Even certain fruits like oranges and kiwis have a little bit of calcium, and they also have a lot of vitamin C. So you can see there's gonna be a lot of overlap in these key foods, and it doesn't take you turning everything upside down to access these nutrients. It's really understanding where they come from and emphasizing those foods more often.
I think people are really familiar with vitamin D, vitamin C, calcium, but vitamin A, I don't know, if you had to ask me, what is it in? I wouldn't really know, so tell me.
Yeah. I'll be happy to. Like vitamin A, again, helps with immune health, reproductive health, skin health, things like this. It's found in about 3 or 4 key food groups. One of them happens to be fish and seafood. So again, we can make that connection right away to vitamin D, right?
Yep.
Similar foods there. It's found in orange vegetables. So the squashes, the sweet potatoes of the world, the orange bell peppers of the world, certain orange fruits, orange-ish fruits like mango. So one of the things I love recommending, so frozen mango, guys, is my most recommended thing. People think of frozen fruit as, you're gonna make a smoothie out of it, but one of my most recommended things to my clients, and they love it, a high success rate, is just pouring out frozen mango into a bowl, having it as a nice little fun dessert after dinner or whenever you want it. And it's has a sorbet-like vibe, and again, it's gonna have vitamin A, it's gonna have vitamin C, it's gonna have potassium. Again, these core foods having all of these nutrients. So that's a big recommendation. And 100% orange juice as well. Underrated, great source of vitamin C, great source of antioxidants.
Pulp or no pulp?
It's personal, it's up to you.
All right.
I would go either way personally, so.
Okay, so fiber and potassium. So we know that fiber helps with digestion,
Absolutely.
but what else do the combination of fiber and potassium, what else does that do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, fiber and potassium are found in a lot of similar foods, but that won't be surprising now. We can see these trends emerging, right? The legumes, I'm gonna bring up legumes specifically, the lentils, the chickpeas. I love recommending roasted chickpeas, whether you purchase them as a snack, you air fry them, you bake them yourself. It's the most filling, satiating, and probably one of the most nutrient-dense afternoon snacks you can have. Both contain fiber, and they contain both fiber and potassium. Fiber is very important for heart health and disease prevention. Above and beyond digestion, it's a very, very important food component, whereas potassium is more related to the functionality of the heart, the muscles, blood pressure control. And fiber and potassium are found in a lot of the foods that we've been discussing. Again, the nuts and seeds, the legumes, the leafy greens. And not to repeat myself, but it's these core groups of foods that contain all the nutrients that we tend to fall short in. So we can rectify that by picking a few and incorporating them daily. Avocado is one that I love as well. I seem to have forgotten. It's on the graphic. So
well, I really hope that y'all watch and PVR'd this episode. This is a good one to PVR. Andy, thank you so much for this.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Hey there, wasn't that great? Do you know where you can find some equally good content? Our YouTube page. It's filled with discussions, debates, and some laughs. Head there now, like and subscribe.